In Joshua chapter 1, after Moses died, God commanded Joshua to lead the children of Israel across the Jordan River into the Promised Land. They were to take the land from the Canaanites, that land that God had promised to the patriarchs. In many ways, the journeys of the Israelites are a metaphor for the life of the believer. They were slaves in Egypt, just like we were slaves to our sin. God redeemed us from that bondage and brought us out to His mountain, where we are to learn His ways. And we then spend a long time in the wilderness, a discipleship program where we learn to relate to Him. We learn to live under His rule. And finally, we cross the Jordan into a new stage of life in the Promised Land. On one level, the Promised Land is like moving into our life's mission. We've left that stage of discipleship. And don't get me wrong, we will always be disciples. We will always be learning. But we leave the stage of being only a student and become a teacher. We move into the ministry, whatever mission it is that God has for you. And this mission will always be work. It's not intended to be easy. It's intended to be a continual growth process for everyone. We're supposed to move into our mission with confidence and with wisdom, and we learn those things as we go. And we're to continue to be obedient, just as God commanded Joshua and the Israelites when they moved across the Jordan. On another level, moving into the Promised Land is like life after the resurrection. Crossing the Jordan is like crossing death from our life now into the life we have then. God's ultimate plan is to restore mankind to a state like existed in the garden, where we're in a right relationship with Him. But remember that Adam wasn't created to live in idleness. He didn't stroll through the garden every day strumming a harp and singing songs. Adam was created to be a gardener, which involves work. Now, his work in the garden wasn't backbreaking. It wasn't like the Hebrews crushing labor in Egypt. It was more rewarding. The land worked with him instead of against him. When the Hebrews crossed the Jordan, God expected them to fight for the land. And eventually, when they had subdued it, they were to start working the soil and making it produce. Mankind wasn't made for idleness. We were always intended to have a job. Now, in each stage of existence, our nature, the nature of our work and the rewards will be different. We won't always work the same way. We won't always put our blood and sweat and tears into the land. What exactly will life be like after the resurrection or in the millennial era? I don't really know. I don't think anybody does. God doesn't really give us a lot of details about it. We do know that there will be greater harmony. But I don't think it will involve floating on clouds and playing harps. I don't think that's in the picture. Remember that Adam had a job to do in the garden. The Hebrews had a job to do in the wilderness and in the Promised Land. We have a job to do here on earth right now. We'll have a job in the Messianic era. And we'll have a job to do in the world that comes after that. And I'm pretty interested to find out what that's going to be. This is Jay Carper from American Torah, saying be blessed.